this is Kenny Kosek for Learning Country and Bluegrass Fiddle, and that was Orange Blossom Special, which we hope you'll be learning by the end of this tape. Let's get right underway with holding this instrument. And this instrument, the violin, is really a two-part instrument, the bow and the violin itself. Now, holding the violin is really a matter of comfort, which is easy to say in the beginning, but ultimately you should just be as comfortable as you can. The violin is held someplace around here, with the chin on top, over the collarbone, and ultimately you should be able to hold it up without using your left hand like this. It's kind of a sign of it being real secure in there. What I use is this detachable shoulder rest. There are a bunch of different kinds of shoulder rests. This one kind of suits me, and it gives the violin a little loft off of your shoulder and takes some of the pressure of holding it off of your chin and shoulder and keeps you from really getting down like this. So, of course, your chin goes right in there, and kind of a nice little angle like that. Classical violinists would tend to hold it a little more like this. I find that a little uncomfortable, and there's a lot of leeway with the styles that country players use. For each fiddle player there is a different style. So I can just show you mine, which is something like that. Now the bow. Here it is. You'll notice that it has a frog here, the hair, and the stick. Now, this peg at the end of it, as you might have divined, changes the pressure on the hairs, either more or less taut. When you've put the bow away, it should be turned to the left. It'll loosen up like that so there's no pressure on this. When you're tightening it up to play, turn it to the right, and you'll notice that the arc of the violin bow is straightening out. What you want to avoid is overdoing it, just like I'm doing now, and ruining this expensive bow by putting a reverse hump in it like that. Bad. Ooh. Or even keeping it straight. You want to have a little bit of a curve there like that, so that there's just enough tension, and there you can see that it still has the arc. And be careful not to over tighten it, because you can warp the bow. All right, well, let's talk about holding the bow. We're going to take a look at the frog right now. This is, again, is the frog rivet. We take our thumb and put it right in there under the stick. Maybe we can see it better from that angle. And we have the fingers above, with the thumb kind of opposing the second finger there. Now, classical violinists give a very kind of fingertippy grip like this, very light. I can't do that. Most country players prefer to have the bow a little more into this area here, fold it over like that. There we go. Now, it shouldn't be really squeezed tight. It should become more or less comfortable. The pressure with the pinky is very light. You're not bearing down too hard. Okay, that's one possibility. Again, experiment with it, see what's your fave. Another possibility, I've seen this done, especially in the Midwest, is to put your thumb under the frog. You're allowed to do that. The thing I would avoid is holding the bow like this, any place toward the middle of the bow. You should be pretty much right there to the frog, because if you do that, if you try to play with this part of the bow, it's going to be very awkward. Okay, so there's some kind of a grip we can work with. Get back into that. And we're ready to actually create a sound on the violin. You'll notice that I'm playing in between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge. This is where the bow goes. As I'm moving the bow, I'm trying to keep it parallel to the line of the bridge. Neither that nor that. You're never going to be perfectly parallel to the bridge, but now you'll notice also with my right hand that your right arm is hinged in various places. The bow is actually a good exercise would be to say just take an open D string. Oh, by the way, the strings are E, A, D, and G. We'll get into tuning a little later. Say take the open D, and then your forearm. And you see it's really all three of these things. Okay, now let's get into tuning the instrument. The violin is tuned again. The skinniest string is E, A, D, G. Now, I tune up with a tuning fork. This is a big old piano tuner's fork, which I like because it's nice and loud. This is an A440. This is what you're going to tune this A string to. Now you hit it off of a likely surface, like your knee. Hold it up to the bridge, and it'll resonate that note. And then you pluck your A string and adjust the string until it matches that note. Now, you'll also notice that this is a tailpiece of the violin. It has what are called fine tuners built right into it. I prefer these because they're very fast and easy to use. All right, well, if you don't have fine tuners, or even if you do, if your violin is way out of tune, these only work for about a musical distance from there to there or so. You use these pegs, of course. And to do this, often you have to apply, they don't work like guitar pegs. These are friction pegs, and they often have to be forced a little inward pressure as you're tuning it to keep them from slipping. If you do have fine tuners, of course, when you get it in the neighborhood, you fine tune them with those little buttons. Okay, now we suppose that we have an A, a plucked A. We try it with a bow, and we assume that the A is in tune. Now, this is a matter of tuning the rest of the strings from that A string. What we need to do is to find the E string note on the A string. That is to say, there's the interval of A to E. A, which is in tune, to E. Find that note, and that's what the next string is tuned to. Now, if we have the A and E strings in tune, we can worry about the D string. Again, that position on the D string becomes the note of the A string. So what we're doing is tuning this note to this open string. And the same thing with the G string. Now, as you play more and more, you'll get to hear the interval of these strings. And when they're played together, they make a certain sound together that, well, you can tell if it's out of tune. Here, I'll untune this. Now, after a while, you just recognize that interval. There are other methods, a pitch pipe, which should have the note of each one of the strings. You simply blow into and get E, A, D, and G. We'll do some more work on tuning later, but for now, possibly the best thing for me to do is to give you notes that you can tune to. There's your A. Here's an E. Here's a D. Okay, now let's work a little on making the bow a little more tenable. This is usually the hardest part, is getting a satisfactory tone out of the violin. A good exercise for my way of thinking is to just try to get as long and even a bow as you can. Starting, say, with the open D string, beginning with the frog, to the tip of the bow. And again, as I'm doing this, my wrist is kind of doing that. My wrist is moving in and out like that, and my elbow is as well. So, because if this is stiff, the natural tendency is for your hand to go like that. So, you needn't apply a lot of pressure. Now, if you'll notice, I'm losing sound there. Now, what this means is we need rosin, indispensable for any violin player. This is rosin. There are a lot of different brands. This is W.E. Hill and Sons. I like that. The way to do this, I've been told, is to do it in circles like this. A little like the way dentists used to tell you to brush your teeth, but they found out it was wrong. But it still holds for bow rosining. Now, of course, doing this is another possibility, but for one thing, this will wear a rut right through the rosin and kind of split it in half, and that's good money out the window. And who needs that in this day and age, or something like that? Okay, well, when we get it feels like there's enough stickum on this. Ah, lovely. Bites right in there. Okay, let's try that again. One long bow. And then an up bow. Now let's talk about some simple exercises for fingering. Most of this tape will deal in what is known as first position, which is to say that your hand will pretty much rest in this part of the fingerboard. Using these 4 fingers. Now, of course, ultimately you'll be going all the way up there. But for now, let's just work on making a G scale happen. That was the simple exercise, a 1-octave G scale. What I was doing on that is I'm playing 2 bows per note, 1 up and 1 down. So we're getting the... Now, the hardest note to accomplish with that scale is the pinky. The pinky does not have as much muscular control ordinarily as the other fingers. So, what we're doing to strengthen our pinkies is going, the first of those 2 bows is a fingered or stopped or closed D note. We're playing the second of the 2 D notes open, because as I explained in tuning before, that note is the next string over, D. So, now this crucial one should be in tune with the next open string. Phew, it is. Okay. Now to help with that, let's look at that with a split screen so you can see both the bowing and the fingering simultaneously. Hi, swell effect, eh? Okay, let's try that again. A 1-octave G scale. Here's that switch. Now, of course, you can do that on all of the strings. Here's a D scale starting with the open D string. switch, or an A scale. I'm starting with the open A string. Now, how about trying a 2-octave G scale, which will go from there. Here's the first octave, and there's the second octave up here. Now that'll go like this. Of course, you can do these scales backwards and get them back down again. As a matter of fact, you should. Well, now that we have somewhat of a handle on the finger positions in first position, and of course this is a very simplistic view, let's maybe start thinking about a tune or two. Also, before we even do that, there is one very standard bowing that's probably familiar to you all, kind of hoedown fiddling, which is, we've all heard. Well, let's slow that down and simplify it and see exactly what it is. It's basically one long note and two short notes. One long note and two notes half as long as the first one. Da, da, da. Da, bum, bum. Let's try learning a tune, a simple tune, Boil Them Cabbage Down, using just that bowing. Closer look at the left hand work on that. There we go. Now, one way to spruce that up a little would be just to add the open E string as you're playing that melody, using the same fingering and bowing. Just put the bow right between the two first strings, so you're playing both of them simultaneously. And play the same melody. Okay, now let's try playing a slightly more complex melody to Boil Them Cabbage Down, which would go. Let's look at that with a split screen and see how the bowing and fingering match up. to spruce that up a little would be just to add the open E string as you're playing that melody using the same fingering and bowing. Just put the bow right between the two first strings, so you're playing both of them simultaneously. And play the same melody. Okay, now let's try playing a slightly more complex melody to Boil 'Em Cabbage Down, which would go. Let's look at that with a split screen and see how the bowing and fingering match up. Top. Notice on some of those notes I was what is called in guitar playing hammering on, which is to say on one bow stroke playing two notes. Okay, let's try something else. Let's move on to another tune with the same bowing. Here's Sally Gooden in the key of A. I'll play this through snappily one time for you, and then we'll break it down, look at both right and left hands, and I'll play it slowly. Again, it starts out with the... Okay, let's look at that slowly. give the impression that there are 7 sacred bowing movements that must be learned. There really aren't. There are different bowing techniques, but there are really no patterns. Patterns are rarely held for the duration of a song. This is a good learning technique in that it does often appear, but the right hand really executes what the left hand is doing. There are different tricks though. If we look at Ragtime Annie, another popular tune, this is in the key of D, we might want to look at this kind of rocking the bow movement. Try this. And then try. Then add this finger there, and we'll get. I'm getting not using very much of the bow at all. It's kind of using those strings as a fulcrum and just rocking it. So let's see how that works into Ragtime Annie. Let's try Ragtime Annie up to tempo and hopefully up to snuff. Let's try another fiddle tune. This will be Arkansas Traveler. And let's try it with some of the drone strings that we were using before. Remember on Boil Them Cabbage Down, we were playing the melody and then adding the top string. Well, the first part of Arkansas Traveler has a lot of that. It's in the key of D, and the melody goes like, you've all heard that. Now what we're doing is playing the middle 2 strings and then the bottom 2 strings together. Well, we're just fingering or stopping the melody on 1 string. If we wanted to get really daring, a true double stop is playing 2 stop notes at once. Now, the beginning of Arkansas Traveler, if you can find that D note, and then play the D string above it. Now, that's admittedly a kind of difficult thing to do, but if you play the melody with these fingers while you have the G string stopped with your pinky, you get that lovely lower drone. Worry about that now, but if you dare to do it, it's there for your trying. Okay, let's try running through Arkansas Traveler with the split screen. try that up to tempo, a little faster. And of course, probably the best known tag, the tag is the last thing you play at the end of a song in country music is. So there you've learned something to play at the end of any piece in the key of D. It's a lovely little tune that's kind of a good exercise for the fifth finger for your pinky there, and get that strong. It has a couple of power moves with the pinky. It's called Blackberry Blossom, and one of the power moves is very scale-like. That's how the song begins. The second pinky power move is a little like the thing that was a variation to Arkansas Traveler, where you are playing these two unison E notes and playing something over it. So let's give this a try. Blackberry Blossom, very slow at first. Let's try that a little faster this time. Let's try a tune called Devil's Dream. The fiddle has always been called the devil's instrument. In the 19th century, it was disproven because the fiddler makes the sign of the cross between the bow and the instrument. Don't blame me, this is history. Okay, Devil's Dream. has some nifty moves in it. You've probably heard it. For one thing, it has a little of that rocking bow that we learned in Ragtime Annie. The tune goes. There's that rocking move. Also the second part, which begins, has that as well. Okay, let's try it slowly at first. There it is. All right, let's try it a little faster. Now, an interesting thing that happens is when you get it really up to speed, a certain thing will happen with the bow bouncing. Now, if you'll notice, if you just kind of just carelessly drop the bow on the violin, it rebounds. You could try to control this. Try bouncing the bow right around the middle of the bow. Usually there's a natural place where it tends to bounce. And if you just do quick up and down bows like this, you'll keep it bouncing. Now if you start flailing away wildly enough at the second part of Devil's Dream, that almost happens naturally. So if you're going, say, that's a real popular one at parties, and if you try it, it almost happens naturally. It'll take a while to build up the speed and to get that to happen, but the bows do tend to bounce, and it's a lot easier than it looks. All right, let's try a New England tune. This is also frequently played in Ireland and Canada. It's called St. Anne's Reel, and it has certain touches of the New England northern kind of fiddling. There's certain ornaments to the notes called triplets. I'll show you how they work into the melody. The melody to St. Anne's Reel goes like this. What we do is go that da-da-dum. There's your triplet. This is very common in Irish music. Another trick or type of ornamentation is the grace note, which is just a flick of the note higher than the note you're playing. So on the second part of St. Anne's Reel, minors. This is the main note. That's the main note right there, and you just, with a mere flick of the pinky, doing that. Okay, let's try the tune once through, slowly with those ornaments. Once fast. Well, so far we've been doing tunes in major keys. Now, when we were playing a scale, for instance, when we played the A scale, that's a major scale. Where the major-minor difference is the third interval. 1, 2, 3. That's a C sharp on this A scale. On a minor scale, that note turns into a C natural, giving it that strange angst-ridden Slavic sound. So let's learn some tunes in a minor key. You might have noticed that Blackberry Blossom, the second part of Blackberry Blossom, the tune that went, that one, the second part of that was built around an E minor chord. So, we're going to learn a tune called Elzic's Farewell. This is a minor tune in A minor and also has 3 distinct parts. So far we've been learning tunes with 2 parts. So, let's try a slow version of Elzic's Farewell. and we'll try that up to speed. You'll notice that the second part, again, has that unison, two E's, kind of exaggerated in this tune, so it has a real wailing, bluesy sound, with a little slide into it and out of it. And of course, there's that minor interval. Let's talk a little about bluegrass fiddle playing. We've done tunes, mainly fiddle tunes. Bluegrass fiddle playing comes from a combination of those tunes and swing music, western swing music, blues, and there are some different techniques involved. We should talk about vibrato. Vibrato, of course, is that rapid hand movement that classical players always use, and bluegrass players, country western players do too. Let's try a simple move here. Suppose we take this B note on the G string, played with the second finger. What we'll do is slowly move the finger back and then forward like that, more or less rocking it around the central finger pad. And try doing that in an exaggerated manner and slowly building up speed. It'll take some time in doing. Try it with the A note underneath it. And with the, say, a C above it with the third finger. And even with a pinky, which is the hardest, of course. Vibrato can be done at different speeds, from very fast to, in Nashville, they often do a slower one. Okay, now, another very much used aspect of bluegrass playing is closed double stops. We spoke about that a little earlier. This is simply the playing of two stop notes. And, of course, that can happen with any two stop notes played together. We'll make a double stop. But let's try some of the simpler shapes. For instance, play a D note on the A string right there with your third finger, and an F sharp right below it with your second finger. So your fingers are practically together, and presto, a D chord. The three notes that we'll concern ourselves about in the key of D would be A, D, F sharp, and an A. Now, there are a number of places on the fingerboard where these combinations occur, of course. The most obvious being the two open strings, the D and the A. There is that shape. Then if we hold on to this D and play an F sharp above it, there's that. A string and the F sharp. There is that F sharp and a D under it. There's that F sharp with an A under it, for instance. Maybe the hardest one to execute is the D with the A above it. This is done with one finger, and it's kind of hard to get it in tune. And of course this occurs in all keys. For instance, in A, here are some again, a kind of hard shape is the A, that A, and that E. Move that over to the middle strings and it becomes D. Move it over to the lower strings and it becomes G. Here are some exercises using scales with double stops, forming some double stop shapes that are commonly used in bluegrass. For instance, here's a G scale using double stops, and I'll go very slowly and show you the shapes. There's this G over a B, then the open two strings, then the B over the open D string, now a C with an E under it, and I'll just move that up a whole step so that this is playing a D, this being my third finger, and an F sharp under it played with the second finger. So we have then the open E and A, then the F sharp over the open A, and then finally the G over the B, which is precisely an octave away from where we started. Try that again. All right, now another one, good exercise with some common shapes in A would be this little exercise. Now, slowly, that is a C sharp over an A with the second and fourth, then down to a B over a G sharp. You'll notice that these fingers just sit perfectly in that position. And this is another common move in bluegrass. Two contiguous double stops. That's just an open A and an F sharp. Then an E and an open A. Then an F sharp with a D under it. Then again we get a contiguous shape here going down to the E and the C sharp. Then just moving the C sharp down to a B, and then finally, again, a one-note double stop, the interval of a fifth, the A and the E. So that is again. Sounds better if you play with vibrato, of course. Here's another typical bluegrass move. And this gets to be a little scary, boys and girls. It's this shape, for instance, a B over a G, or an E over a C, or an F sharp over a D. Let's try it without a safety net for the first time in Europe, ladies and gentlemen, a B over a G. Okay, that's no problem, right? Now what we're going to do is slide it all the way up to there. Ooh. So we're sliding this B note up to a D. We're sliding this G up to a B under it. Again, a little vibrato always helps and masks bad intonation, so use it whenever possible. And the same shape, of course, occurs on the other strings, and this ends up being a C chord, an E over C, sliding up to a G over an E. And finally on the top strings, an F sharp over a D, sliding up to an A over an F sharp. Let's talk bluegrass. I'd like to get into just playing over some typical bluegrass chord changes. And there'll be some elements to this hastily composed solo. One being those double stops. We just went through all those exercises. And another being slides. In bluegrass, the slides, the blues influence and the swing influence, precipitated a lot of... See how I'm going? This is in the key of G. Especially sliding in and out of a note, a little like we did on the second part of Elzic's Farewell. Again, using vibrato, unlike the fiddle tunes. And the end of this will be a double stop movement like this. Again, we're building on those exercises we did before. So let's go through this slowly. I'm going to be utilizing the fabulous talents of Happy Traum on guitar, so you'll get a sense of the tonality and the chord movements that happen through this piece. Before we get to this solo, there are a couple of more bluegrass institutions that I'd like to show you. One of them is the kind of introduction or kickoff to a solo that goes, which is a quick triplet with the frog of the bow, da da da, and then the lead-in notes and a slide into the first note, the downbeat of the solo. Now that can be done with this double stop in front. We take a look at the fingering. It's an F sharp over a B, that old one note double stop, and we keep holding the F sharp as we add those fingers. Another thing that I'll do here is use sliding double stops one into another. Be using this D double stop, a D over an F sharp, sliding it down, and then sliding a C over an E under it. This goes, and later on using this, that movement. So let's give this a try. 1, 2, 3. Here's some more terrifying double stop exercises for your pleasure. More of this up there in third position. The third position I said we wouldn't be seeing much of in this tape, and we are in fact. Now there's a certain chordal movement. Taking these double stops, sliding them down to, which is the opposite of the exercise we did before. Notice also that we were talking about contiguous double stops. If we just we're playing this with our first and third fingers, and if you plunk down your second and fourth fingers practically where they are, you get, this is a G double stop, and this becomes a C and an E. It's a C. Of course, that can be done on the other strings as well. Now, if we take this lower double stop and further lower this third finger down to an F, we get a seventh chord, the seventh interval, a flat seventh interval of the scale, which that is, suggests attention to go to, from a G, a C chord. That's used a lot in bluegrass. Now this exercise will be sliding up there, making that second and fourth finger double stop over it. Now then, to satisfy that irresistible urge to go to a C chord, we'll make a C chord happen up here. Again, with that, back to that C shape, and then that G shape. I know this is hard. Now here we're going to play a D chord with the seventh interval of that, played with the third finger on the G string. So again, we're building adjacent double stops. Let's try this with some musical accompaniment. In the key of G. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, The Fiddler's Friend, Orange Blossom Special, which has probably earned more money from more fiddlers than any other tune known to mankind. As complicated as it looks, it breaks it down into some very simple kind of things. Let's concentrate on the shuffle part, or a double shuffle as it's called, which is the incredibly fast. All right, now we'll first of all just go over the double stops. This contains some of those contiguous double stops that we were talking about, where kind of the second and fourth finger fit neatly over the first and third. The main body of the song is these double stops. We'll take a look at this. There it is, that's the E and a C sharp under it. And what you're doing is playing that, then playing just the A, open A, and the E. That's, okay, there's one set of double stops. The next one, again, you just plunk down the second and fourth, more or less where they are, more or less. course, that they're immaculately in tune. I said immaculately. Oh, okay. Now this is the F sharp and the D. And again, you will be rocking from there to the open A and an F sharp. Okay, there's the second thing. So we have. Now the third set is simply moving over what you played in the first place to the middle strings, a B and a G sharp, and rocking to an open E with the B note. And again, taking that figure, plunking it down, there's the C sharp on the A string, and the A, and then rocking to the open E and the C sharp. So that's, and all told, that's. Okay, let's look at the bowing that's going to happen on some of these things. Now, a simple shuffle, we'll start with that first double stop, the A over C sharp. And we're going to be dealing with these three strings. And basically what we're going to be doing, and you want the bow more or less right in the middle of the bow there, is playing two of these, then rocking the bow over to the middle two strings and playing two of those. We get. And we just repeat that. So it's, just shifting the bow over from the lower two strings to the middle two. Lower, middle. Then moving to that double stop in the same bow motion. Then switching quickly, deftly, to the top three strings. Now, a double shuffle is now what that is two on the bottom two strings and one on the middle two strings. Now, there are other moves that you can make during the shuffle part. Here are some of them. In the first double stop, what I'm doing there is sending down my second finger to play an F sharp to alter that chord, thusly E and F sharp, so we're getting. Every time you're going to these middle two strings, you're alternating. Then, in this figure, sticking down that index finger to make a B note happen. Again, alternating each time you hit the middle two strings with the open A and the B. So, with it's the precisely same finger shape as the first one you did, sticking the second finger down to make a C sharp. And then, again repeating the shape just on the middle two strings. Another variation would be, and instead of going to there, simply slide the third finger down a half step to the C natural. You'd be going. Then on to the next one. And likewise down a half step from the G sharp to the G. It's better, of course, to resolve the last movement the last time you play it with this, to get that firm A. I'll do this whole thing again. So much for the monster section of Orange Blossom Special, a double shuffle and all its fanfare and glory. There's the initial part of Orange Blossom Special starts out over an E chord. The entire band will be just playing an E chord pretty fast. The fiddler gets to improvise over an E chord. It's very difficult for me to tell you what to improvise. I'll do that later. Well, I can think of a couple of things. Things like that. Let's take a look at that, what the left hand is playing. We have that double stop where we're having an E played in unison with the open E string. Almost like Sally Gooden in E. Another common move is playing this double stop, a D over a B, with the same bowing that you're using over the double shuffle part. Bringing it down in half steps like that, or doing this. This is a wild one. It's a D note, a G note, played with one finger, a B note over there. Again, the shuffle bowing. It's just coming down in half steps. Let's take a look at what the bow is doing on that. Now there's a way of getting back from that part, messing around over an E chord, into the shuffle part, and that is this movement. We start with the B note over a G sharp note, and let's take a look at how the fingers fall on that. Then pull it back. Sounds just like a whistle. Then, and we're magically in the key of A. Again, that's, and then, and we're magically in the key of A. Then, and we're magically in the key of A. 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 And we're magically in the Now for a real treat, you can try playing this string, and this string, all three of them, with one bow. That's kind of hard, and you have to use a lot of bow pressure. And then there's a one-note double stop. Then we're going back to this shape, the E and C sharp. Real bluesy is. And then we start in with that business, which you've already learned. Now, the third final part is kind of fiddle tuney. And it goes like this. That's kind of very straightforward, almost like an exercise. Again, it's... Then... and then we're back into the E. Here's another common thing that's done with the bow, and that thing kind of a train sound, which is just moving the bow back and forth. Okay, if we can get a tight shot of that, just the bridge area, you can see that the bow is just kind of vacillating back and forth between the edge of the bridge and the edge of the fingerboard. I'm not using much of a lateral movement at all, but mainly just that way. Now, to add to that, if you can pull back and see exactly what's happening with the entire bow, then simultaneously a real neat trick is playing a pizzicato. Meanwhile, what you're doing is playing a one-note double stop on the middle strings. Hitting that open E string with your free third finger, so you simultaneously you get this action. And thus into the... Alright, well here's Orange Blossom Special a couple of times through with what you've learned and possibly some other variations thrown in there. think that about covers most of the music that we can. We've taken it in a very short time from a very simple violin cabbage down to Orange Blossom Special and all kinds of outrageous, very difficult double stopping, even triple stopping. Remember that this is a tremendous amount of material to go through in one time, so bit by bit is the best recommendation, the best advice that I can give. Go through everything very slowly and try to master one section before going on to another. Well, this is Kenny Kosek signing off for Homespun Tapes Learning Country and Bluegrass Fiddle, and I had a lot of fun teaching it, and I hope that these tapes and learning the fiddle brings you happiness through the years. We'll see you and take you out on a little Sally Gooden.